Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're looking at one of the most famous texts ever written about love. We've all heard it at weddings, right? But what if it's not just a beautiful poem? What if it's actually a super practical field guide for dating in the 21st century?
I mean, you know these words. As soon as you hear them, you picture a wedding. They've become the gold standard, the beautiful soundtrack for what we think love is supposed to look like when a couple says I do.
Yep, this passage from 1 Corinthians 13 is so famous that it's just known as the love chapter. It's held up as the ultimate definition of what love is, what love does, and what love looks like.
But hang on, let's really look at this again. What if this isn't just about beautiful feelings? What if it's actually a powerful, super practical tool that can help us navigate the messy, complicated world of modern dating?
So, to figure that out, we've got to go back to the original blueprint. Before we can even think about applying it to dating, we need to understand what this kind of love really is. And spoiler alert, it might not be what you think. Okay, here is the absolute game changer. This passage isn't describing a fuzzy, passive feeling that just happens to you. Nope, it's describing a series of active, deliberate choices that you make. It's basically an ethical framework, what the source material here calls a Jesus-shaped love. For instance, when the text says love suffereth long, which, sounds a little old-fashioned, it doesn't just mean waiting around. It's about actively choosing patience when you're stressed out. It's choosing restraint instead of a knee-jerk reaction. That's a kind of quiet strength.
And when it says love vaunteth not itself, it's talking about a love that's humble. It's a love that doesn't have to brag or constantly try to impress everyone. Why? Because it's secure. It doesn't need to perform for an audience. It just is. Then there's seeketh not her own, which is a huge challenge to our me-first culture, isn't it? It just means love is selfless. It's actively looking out for the other person's good, not just demanding its own way all the time. Think about how rare that actually is.
And this one is so important. Love isn't easily provoked. Now let's be clear, this doesn't mean being a doormat at all. It's about having strength that's under control. It's about emotional regulation and refusing to let every little disagreement blow up into a huge fight. Okay, so we've got the blueprint. But how do we take this ancient wisdom and apply it to our modern lives? From dating app profiles to that tricky third date. Let's get really practical and see what this looks like on the ground.
All right, let's start with love is patient. In dating, this is simple, but it's huge. It means giving a new relationship space to breathe. You just let things unfold at a natural pace without trying to force it or rush to the finish line. So the red flag here is pretty obvious. It's anyone who gets pushy. Someone who gets annoyed or impatient when you set a boundary, whether that's about physical stuff, the DTR, define the relationship talk, or even just how much emotional energy you can give them. Next, what about is not puffed up? In a potential partner, this really just means humility. And here's the key difference. A humble person is genuinely curious about who you are. A proud person is more interested in making you into who they want you to be. So yeah, you want to watch out for any kind of superiority complex. Maybe it's spiritual, where they act like they're your personal theologian, or maybe it's about their job, their money, their status. Whatever it is, it's a huge warning sign that they want to control you. Okay, that principle that love is not easily provoked, this points directly to emotional maturity. And let me tell you, in dating, this is absolutely non-negotiable. You have to watch really carefully how someone handles even tiny little disappointments. Seriously, how someone handles a simple no or a change of plans or the waiter getting their order wrong, it tells you everything. An explosive reaction to a small problem is one of the biggest predictors of future harm. Pay attention to it.
And finally, rejoiceth in the truth. In dating, this just means being brave enough to be honest. It's about seeking out those big, important conversations early on about faith, money, life goals, intimacy, instead of just avoiding them because they're awkward. And look, this isn't about looking for fights. It's about building a relationship on a foundation of reality. Being willing to have a few uncomfortable conversations now will prevent so much more pain down the road. It's a fantastic sign of a healthy connection. But there's a part of this ancient text that gets misunderstood all the time. And it's so important that we get this right. Because this is not a manual for being a doormat, especially not when you're just getting to know someone. So you hear these phrases, right? Beareth all things,
endureth all things. They sound so noble and strong, but they can be dangerously misinterpreted to mean that real love just has to tolerate anything and everything, no matter what.
So let me be absolutely 100% clear on this. This is not a command to endure abuse. It's not a command to put up with disrespect, neglect, or any kind of harm. Dating is supposed to be for discovery, not a test of how much mistreatment you can take.
In fact, setting boundaries is a deeply biblical idea. Love is meant to support people through hard times, for sure, but love does not enable harm. We see Jesus himself model this. He would literally walk away from situations where he wasn't being treated with honor. So after all that, what's the big takeaway? Well, when you start to see 1 Corinthians 13 not as a poem, but as this practical guide, it totally reframes the entire goal of dating. Here's the big shift. The goal isn't really to find some perfect person who already has all this down. The real goal is for you to practice this more perfect, Jesus-shaped love. A love that's strong, that's honest, that's patient, and that's self-giving, without erasing yourself in the process. And that just changes everything, doesn't it? It shifts the focus away from judging a potential partner against some impossible checklist and toward developing your own ability to love well. So the question stops being, is this the perfect person for me? And it becomes, am I becoming the kind of person who knows how to truly love?